What is up, my aesthetic boys? It's Fresh, back with another video. I know how you all feel about entitled parents, so I might have made like a 23-minute video for you guys. Hope you like it. Entitled mom tries to steal my cat and calls the cops on me, demanding medical fees. Here's the backstory. I picked up my cat as a stray 7 months ago and did all the works on her. Vax, deflea, dental, grooming, microchip, etc. Yesterday, I was letting my cat out of the house on her daily exploration trip around the apartment block, which allowed pets since I was on the ground floor apartment. I always follow my cat since I live in a part of the world where people kidnap cats to sell to restaurants as substitute meat. Here comes a little girl who started playing with my cat, stroking it and petting it, which isn't uncommon. I lent her the cat toy I was holding so she could play with my cat. The entitled mom then comes along and chats me up, asking about what breed my cat is, how old, the usual questions. Then after about 5 minutes, the lady says she needs to go and tells the girl. The girl then uses the toy to attract my cat and then grabs her. When I try to ask nicely to return my cat and the toy, she said that her daughter really likes the cat and the cat obviously likes her too, so they should keep the cat. Besides, a guy like me in his mid-20s owning a cat and living alone is just creepy, so I should be thanking them. Now my cat doesn't like being carried, so she starts struggling while the girl is screaming at her mom that she wants the cat. I reach out to free my cat, but the entitled mom slaps my arm, yelling at me to not touch her daughter and her cat, screaming that I'm a child molester in public. I was confused at first and stepped back. That's when my cat scratched the kid's arm and kicked off her face to get away. She immediately runs back behind me. Now the entitled mom is screaming at me, accusing me of trying to molest and injuring her daughter and steal her cat. She asks one of the passers-by to call the cops, which the guy did. Things were escalating and I was yelling back at her until a patrol officer shows up in under 5 minutes. Before I could explain my situation, entitled mom is already recounting her side of the story, saying that she left her child unattended for a while and I tried to steal her cat and molest her child. She then demanded I pay for medical bills since I scared the cat into scratching her daughter. Lucky for me, the officer was kind enough to listen to my side of the story and I had to clarify things. I opened the door to my apartment and my cat instantly ran back inside, proving that it was my cat. My neighbors and a few other witnesses also stood up for me, which I'm really thankful for. In the end, entitled mom left in a hurry after the police dismissed her claims and demands. You know, it's interesting because free speech in the US is protected under the First Amendment to the Constitution. It does, however, have limits, and these limits are infamously analogized by Justice Holmes in Shank v. the United States as, quote, "The most stringent protection of free speech would not protect a man in falsely shouting fire in a theater and causing a panic." One could certainly make the argument that falsely yelling child molester in a crowded public sidewalk would be tantamount to such an event. Entitled parent at Disney World demands our reservations. So my husband and I just celebrated our anniversary. We are huge Disney fans, so we are vacationing in Disney World. 2 days ago, on our anniversary, we had dinner at the Be Our Guest restaurant in the park. Now mind you, this is an extremely popular and hard to get into restaurant. The dining experience takes place in the Beast's Castle, the food is divine, and therefore you have to make reservations months in advance if you want a chance to eat there. So that's just what I did. I made reservations back in early November. We were set for a table of 2 on our anniversary. Fast forward to now. My husband and I arrive at the restaurant a few minutes before our reservation time. We get in line and are standing behind a couple with their 2 kids, 1 toddler and 1 maybe 10-year-old. The couple gets to the front of the line and the following conversation ensues. EM is entitled mom. Entitled mom, we need a table for 4, with 2 kids menus. Host, do you have a reservation, ma'am? EM, no reservation, I don't have time for those. Host, I'm sorry ma'am, but we are completely booked for the rest of the evening. If you'd like to leave your phone number, I can put you on the waitlist in case a reservation is canceled last minute. I swear I heard this mom's jaw hit the floor. Entitled mom, you cannot be booked for the rest of the night. Host, I'm sorry, we really are. Entitled mom, well then let's make a reservation for another day this week. Host searches on computer, you're in luck, we have an opening for Wednesday at 9 p.m. Does that work? Entitled mom, 9 p.m.? I have 2 young children. They have to eat before 9. Who has dinner that late? At this point, the 2 kids are getting upset because they are realizing that they won't get to eat at the Beauty and the Beast castle. The mom demanded to speak to the manager. While they waited for the manager, the host motioned for my husband and I to step forward and be helped. When we told the host we had a reservation for 2, the entitled mom taps me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, I have 2 girls and we have been looking forward to eating here for weeks. They are just little girls. I'm sure you wouldn't mind letting us use your reservations to make this night magical for them." I'm sorry, but I made these reservations months ago. This is a popular restaurant and today is our anniversary. I can't give you my reservations. Entitled mom, you don't even have kids? What are you even doing here? This is unacceptable. My children need to eat here. I've been promising them this for weeks. You can go eat elsewhere. The manager eventually came and handled the situation, I assume. He also came to our table later on and gave us some free dessert for the uncomfortable situation we were in. Dinner was delicious, and I like to think that Bratty Cathy and her slime children had to eat at a burger stand that evening. Now, certainly no shade toward burger stands on my end, but let me try to give you a little more context on just how hard it is to get a reservation for this restaurant. So obviously, if we look at the time for tonight, if we look for dinner tonight, no reservations available. But let's check a month from now. End of February, no reservations available. End of March, still no dinner reservations available. Let's try the end of April. Look at that, no dinner reservations available. And finally, the end of May. Okay, thank you. Finally, 1 month does indeed have an open dinner reservation for 4, but again, it's 8:35 p.m., which the mom apparently wouldn't have liked anyway. But this is 4 months from now. Now, it turns out that apparently you can book dining reservations at Disney World 180 days in advance of your stay, so it makes sense that a popular restaurant like this would fill up quickly. Now, I mentioned the burger stand shade earlier. Judging by the menu that this place has, featuring a whole lot of French words that probably aren't that appealing to young American kids, I'd go out on a limb and say that they're probably just fine to be eating a burger tonight. Entitled mother almost kills her child because she wanted him to ride a ride he wasn't allowed to, then tries to press assault charges against me. When I was 16, I worked at the amusement park in my city. It wasn't a big one, but it wasn't small either. Most of our rides were aimed towards elementary school age children, though we had a few for the older kids as well. Anyways, I was a rides operator, and that day I was assigned to a ride designed for older kids. We had to measure the kids, and they couldn't go on if they were under the height requirements no matter what, even if they had a parent with them, because it was a ride that only had a bar that went across your stomach, so someone too small could easily fall off. Entitled mother, who we'll call EM, and her entitled brat, EB, are in line, and I can already tell the kid is going to be too short to ride without even having to measure him. He's pretty far back, so I know it's going to be 1 or 2 runs before he makes it on, so after I'm done loading, I tell entitled mother that her kid is too short for the ride, and that they should go try the smaller version of it on the other side of the park. She looks at me with the dirtiest stare ever and just says, "We're gonna wait here." Now, I have to run my ride because I need to meet certain times, so I don't argue. Time goes by and she's finally at the start of the line. I measure her kid, and of course, he's like 6 inches shorter than the height requirements. "I'm sorry ma'am, but your child is too short to ride this ride. I would recommend going over to the smaller version near the entrance of the park though." Entitled mother, "No, it's fine. I'm with him. I will hold him." She tries to shove me out of the way, but I'm standing my ground. "I'm really sorry ma'am, but we don't allow people under the height limit to ride this ride. The safeties we have on it just won't hold someone too small and your kid could fall off." She then asks to speak to my manager. I get asked that quite a lot by entitled parents, so I give them a call and tell her to wait on the side while I load my ride. She gets very offended, saying that she shouldn't have to wait longer for her kid to ride this ride because I couldn't do my job, and at this point, I just kinda ignore her and move on. Ride runs, my team lead gets there and talks with her. He tells her that he's really sorry, but that I'm right, her child can't ride this ride. Now at this point, entitled brat is throwing a tantrum, and I mean, he's rolling on the concrete like a piece of bacon in a frying pan. I'm trying my hardest not to laugh at this point. Anyway, my lead apologizes, offers her a skip the line ticket for the ride he's allowed to go on at the entrance, and leaves. Entitled mother is trying to calm down entitled brat and starts talking to him. He gets up all smiling and happy and stands next to the gates watching me. Now, I'm not thinking too much of this at this point, so I start loading my ride again, which has significantly less busy line, and I have a couple empty seats on it. As I'm doing my security checks and getting ready to run it, entitled mother taps me on the shoulder and thanks me for my help, which I found extremely odd. I turn around to tell her that it's really no problem, and she starts apologizing and telling me that she shouldn't have acted the way she did and blah blah blah. I'm completely stunned, not really sure how to react, but I tell her it's no problem and to enjoy the rest of her day. I look back at my ride and realize that entitled brat isn't standing next to the fence anymore. I'm starting to get weird vibes. I look around for him and he's not anywhere to be seen. I look at entitled mother again, who has her phone out with her camera pointing at the ride, and that's when I knew. I take my keys out of the ride and start walking towards it. It's kind of a swing type of thing, so I couldn't see the back from where I was standing, but I knew damn well entitled brat had snuck on. Entitled mother starts panicking, asking me what I'm doing and why I'm not running the ride. I completely ignore her and walk to the back of the ride, and lo and behold, entitled brat is sitting there and almost poops himself when he sees me walking towards him. He didn't have the bar properly locked at all and would have flown right out as soon as I started the ride. Now, I am mad, and I mean mad. I could have gone to jail for manslaughter right then and there. I just look at him and very sternly tell him to get off my ride. He tells me he can't and he needs help, which is fair. I don't even know how he managed to get on in the first place, but I grab him and put him down, and he starts sprinting towards his mom, crying. As he's running, he trips and falls down on his face. When he gets up, his nose is all bloody and his knees are skinned, which is when I knew I was completely and utterly screwed. Entitled mom starts screaming like a banshee at the sight. As I'm running towards the kid to make sure he's not dead and to help him up, she runs toward me, slaps me hard across the face, and starts yelling for security. I'm absolutely and completely stunned at this point. Some security guards must have heard her screaming at the top of her lungs because they come running, and the exchange goes something like this. Security guard is SG. Security guard: what's going on here? Entitled mom: this girl assaulted my son. She threw him off the ride and onto the pavement. Me: excuse me? Entitled brat: it's true. She punched me too. SG: do you want us to call the police? Entitled mom: yes, you need to arrest her. She's mentally unstable. I'm just dumbfounded at this point. My lead gets to the ride and asks what the hell is going on, and I tell him everything that happened in between sobs. There's one thing entitled mom forgot to take into account though. There were like 15 people on the ride who saw everything. So they tell the police and the security guards and my lead and everyone else what happened, and entitled mom quickly realized her error as she just started running with her kid in tow as soon as she saw people asking the other guests questions. They caught her pretty quickly and I pressed assault charges against her. Needless to say, I handed in my resignation the same day. I understand a story like this might seem really unbelievable. I wasn't sure if it was believable at the start either, but I've seen parents act exactly like this in amusement parks. A variety of stressors, from the amount of money being spent, potential heat, time constraints. Those can really make a person do things that they might not do otherwise, and especially if you're already inclined to be an entitled parent, only exacerbate those ideas. I have seen parents try to sneak undersized kids onto rides, and believe me, when a ride operator stops you, it's not because they don't want you to ride, it's because it's unsafe. They could get in trouble, you could get hurt, and nobody wants either of those outcomes. It's fine if you all die in the snow, just so long as I don't get cold and wet. I work in a primary school office, so entitled parents are a daily occurrence for me. Sometimes, though, they go above and beyond. I'm in the north of England in the Pennines, Big Hills. Yesterday we got snow, and a lot of snow fell in a hurry. From about 1:30, parents were making their way to school to pick up their children, knowing that the roads would be bad by 3 p.m. when school routinely closed. We had a steady flow of people calling as they were driving, asking us to have their child ready and waiting at the office. Our standard response to that is no, because we've no way of knowing, especially in bad weather, just how long it'll be till they get picked up. A parent's 5-minute guesstimate can quickly turn into 30, and then me and my office mates are stuck child-minding when the kid could be settled and learning in the classroom. There's also the standard late parent. Children who aren't collected on time at the end of the school day get brought to the office at 3:10, where we play bad cop with the late parent and criticize their tardiness. Yesterday, we knew we'd get a bunch of late parents because of the weather, and we're just more concerned with getting their children out of school so that we could go home too, to really bother lecturing them about timekeeping. But there's always one, isn't there? Procedure is that a member of the senior leadership team and one other member of staff must stay behind until the last child is collected, and I elected to stay because the other office staff have children they need to collect from other local schools, and I have no kids, so me staying behind made sense. It's 3:30 p.m., half an hour after school closed. All but one of the children have now been collected. I have called all of the contacts we had for the leftover child: mom, dad, a grandparent, an uncle, and an older sister. Only the sister answered and said they'd ring their parents and ask them to call the school. By 3:40 p.m., I have called all of the contacts again with no success. Not even sister is answering now. I've looked up child's address on Google Maps. It's a 15-minute walk. SLT and I are debating whether we should just volunteer to deliver child home. Make no mistake, this is not altruism. We just want to get home before the rapidly falling snow makes it too dangerous to drive. SLT lives 30 miles away, further up the hill, so she is getting a bit twitchy about road conditions. We agree that as soon as we get a hold of a parent, we'll suggest it to them. Leftover child is happily reading to us. At 3:45 p.m., grandparents call back, but they are very elderly and cannot come to school, so promise to call child's parent and ask them to call us. At 3:50 p.m., I have called the parents' numbers again. Neither is answered, nor do they go to voicemail. My husband has texted me to say it's snowing at home and sticking, very unusual. I start to worry as I hate driving in snow. Leftover child and SLT are folding and cutting printer paper into snowflakes for the window. At 4 p.m., sister calls back to say she's spoken to dad and he's going to try and come, but he's in Big Town 15 miles away and traffic is bad. I tell sister that if I can speak to dad, I'm happy to deliver child either home or to grandparents' house. Sister says she'll ask dad to ring me straight away. Child is getting stuck into their maths homework. At 4:10 p.m., leftover child is grumbling as they've usually had a snack at home by now and they're hungry. SLT heads to the breakfast club storeroom for some toast and milk. I text a couple of colleagues to find out what the road conditions are like on mine and SLT's routes home. They express surprise that I'm still at school. At 4:15 p.m., we are all watching Frozen and eating toast. I have called grandparent to see if I can take child to their home. They're now not answering. At 4:25 p.m., dad calls. He is stuck in traffic and hasn't moved for 20 minutes. This is not surprising as the road back from Big Town is a bit of a bottleneck and often gets snarled up even without snow. I ask if I can take child somewhere. He says no, there's no one at home and grandparent is recovering from a bout of pneumonia in the hospital. I ask if mom's closer than he is. She is, but she's collecting another child from high school, so maybe stuck in traffic too. At 4:30 p.m., I have tried calling mom again just to see where she is. She doesn't answer. I text my husband so that he knows I'm still at school. At 4:40 p.m., SLT is on the phone to social services. Per procedure, we call them at 4:30 in cases of non-collection, but obviously they're sure it's a weather issue, so just hang on and keep ringing the parents. By 5 p.m., SLT and I are mildly freaking out. SLT's partner has called as they were worried about the fact she isn't home yet. There has been a big accident on the road into their village, so she'd have to detour through another valley and come into home village from the north, adding another 25 miles to the journey, which will now occur in the dark. SLT starts thinking about who lives close that could put her up for the night instead of risking the trip. By 5:30 p.m., one of the cleaners has walked around to the chippy for us, and we're all tucking into fish and chips. We have cans of Coke and chocolate buttons too. Frozen is ended, so we're scrolling for a new film and plump for The Lion King. I finally get an answer from mom's phone. She screams at me. Why the hell have I been calling and calling and calling? She said 14 missed calls from us. Don't we know what the roads are like? If she'd answered the phone, she would have crashed. I explained that child is still with us at school and it is 2.5 hours since school closed and ask where she is. She's at home. She has been at home since 4:15 and didn't bother answering my calls or calling me back because she didn't want to have to come back out in the snow. Again, she lives a 15-minute walk or 5-minute drive away, so she thought she'd wait out for the snow to stop, then walk up to collect child from school, as she knew child would be safe with us in the meantime. My brain stopped working at that point and rolled
atrophied out of my gaping mouth. I told her she'd better be at school within 20 minutes or her child would be picked up from school by the social worker who was on their way here. Total lie. She went mental, asking what authority I had to get social care to repossess one of her children. I rattled off some bullocks about the Children's Act of 2004 and child abandonment, another total lie. And SLT's eyebrows are getting higher and higher up her forehead because she knows I'm talking crap. Mom backpedals and says she'll come now. At 5:50 p.m., Mom arrives in school. Child is full of chips and orange juice, watching Disney, and reasonably happy considering the circumstances. Mom gives me an earful about dragging her out in this weather. SLT gives her both barrels in return. Our caretaker and one of the cleaners have stayed on site. Caretaker needs to set the alarms and lock up when we leave. Cleaner wanted to stay in case we needed any errands running as she only lives across the road. SLT tells Mom that she has caused four people to stay in school for almost 3 hours after school is closed, that 3 of those 4 now have long and perilous journeys home in the dark. Caretaker thankfully kept his mouth shut as he lives about 10 minutes up the road, and that poor Miss Magoo's husband and imaginary children have been beside themselves with worry because she has to go home on the motorway, said as though I was being forced to swim through a croc-infested river. Mum gets all flustered and shouts at Child to come on then, you've kept Miss waiting here long enough, as though it's Child's fault they're still here, and that they need to go home for tea and to get homework done. Child happily tells her that we've had fish and chips and they've done their homework already. Mum, who had been tugging Child's sleeve and heading out the door, stops dead, turns around and screams at us, "What effing right have you got to give my child their tea?" And then goes off about how family time is sacred and they sit down together every night as a family and discuss their day, and now this precious time has been ruined. Caretaker steps up then to herd them out, saying, "You coulda effing had another hour of precious effing sacred time if you'd bothered to come here when we called you," and promptly shut and locked the door behind her. SLT did drive home after all that. She texted me at 8 p.m. to say she was home safe, her usual 40-minute journey taking a bit over 2 hours. My 20-minute drive took about 30, and Hubs had a very large glass of wine waiting for me. Well, I suppose entitled mom is right here. The child was going to be safe at the school. These grown, responsible adults were not going to leave the child alone, or God forbid, leave the child out in the cold. That does not mean, however, that you have the right to take advantage of that morality, that you have the right to take advantage of that responsibility and waste their time, take their time away from their family, risk their lives on a perilous drive back home, just because you didn't want to walk up the road 15 minutes. On the plus side, it does seem like the child wasn't really negatively affected by the situation. She probably had fun just hanging out with the adults at school, and hopefully it won't leave any kind of bad impact on her going forward. Hopefully the mom does not do anything else to jeopardize such an impact. I'm afraid that it's likely, though, if this behavior keeps up. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. Be sure to subscribe for more daily Reddit content. Drop a like if you liked the video, and I will see you all tomorrow. Fresh.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.